welcome to the Positive Coaches Alliance workshop on honoring the game and being a double coach. Before I get started, I'll give you a brief introduction about my background. All in all, I have coached and taught in higher education for 40 years, mostly at the college level. I'd say 95%. I spent 29 years as a assistant football coach, mostly as the defensive coordinator, and 10 years as a head football coach. And I spent 22 years as a head wrestling coach. I coached powder puff football, and I coached hot stove baseball for 6 years. I've been a strength coach, and I've taught health and nutrition and philosophy and psychology of coaching and leadership classes throughout my career. The last 10 years, mostly leadership classes. And most recently, I secured a citation for character and coaching from Fresno Pacific University. And this is what really got me interested in coming into the Positive Coaches Association, because I learned a lot through taking those 4 courses. The reason why I've chosen to continue coaching and to become a trainer for the Positive Coaches Alliance is, after being a coach and an athlete for 50 years, I really miss the mentoring and the impact that you can have on young people. And I've recently taken a job in advancement, which is fundraising, at my alma mater, University of Mount Union. And I really miss coaching, but I don't miss the time where, I'm 61 now. So what I really like to do is I like to still have the opportunity to impact people and coach coaches, and to help to change the culture of youth sport and help to change the culture of coaching. It has become my passion and my hobby. So during the 50 years I was coaching, things have changed a lot more than just equipment. Equipment's changed a great deal, but our society, more importantly, has changed. The way that we, for example, the attitudes towards winning and losing in light of, teaching life lessons. Parents and fans are a lot different. When I talk about this, what I have done through taking this class is it's caused me to look at sports in a much different light. It was kind of like when I became a Christian, it caused me to look at other people's behavior in a much different light that I didn't see before. So the other night, whenever the Cleveland Cavaliers were playing the Golden State Warriors, Steph Curry fouled out of the game. And when he fouled out of the game, he was frustrated, and he threw his mouth guard towards the scorer's table and hit a fan. Well, immediately, I had 2 thoughts right there. Before, I might not have ever seen it. But this time I saw it, and then I saw him go over and apologize immediately, which helped me gain a lot of respect. The other thing that I really noticed was how the fan handled his exit from the game. And it was kind of an embarrassment to me that our society has turned uncivil towards athletes and enjoy it whenever they get thrown out of a situation. And I think the Positive Coaches Association addresses these matters in areas that I think are very, very important to the youth development and important to the changing of the culture of youth sports. So enough about me. I'd like each of you to introduce yourself, to tell us as a class here what sport you coach and how long, and why you are here and what you hope to get out of this. And Kelly, would you like to start, please?
Sure, I would love to. So my name is Kelly. I started coaching college basketball, Division II basketball, right out of college myself. And then I went on to coach high school basketball. And then I coached high school lacrosse. And then I jumped down to my own kids. I took a break for a few years, jumped down to coaching my own kids in youth soccer. And for the past 7 years, I have been coaching youth lacrosse, usually at the middle school level, 5th, 6th, and 7th grade. But this year was my first season coaching 8 and 9-year-olds. So I've been coaching total for about 17 years. But currently I'm coaching 8 and 9-year-old girls lacrosse. Most difficult challenge I've had so far.
That's great. That's great. They really need you, especially with the positive attitude that you have. And what do you hope to get from this workshop, Kelly?
I just would like to have some different ideas on ways to motivate the players. Lacrosse is a difficult sport. There's skills. Not every kid can kick a soccer ball, but not every kid can just go out and catch a lacrosse ball in a lacrosse stick. So they get very frustrated easily because it's not something they can do quickly and learn quickly. So I would just love to hear some ways to keep the athletes motivated, keep them to have a positive attitude. A lot of them are really hard on themselves and they say, I stink and I can't do it. And I wasn't expecting that as much. I kind of thought little kids would be easy to keep them happy and motivated, but they're very hard on themselves. So that's what I'm hoping to get out of this, or just some tools that I can use to keep the kids excited about learning a difficult skill or a difficult sport.
Great. So far in this workshop, you've been already through the first 2 principles. Can you tell me 1 or 2 things that you can really take into this last workshop? Can you tell me, what have you really gained so far? What have you learned? What do you think that you'll use?
I think so far I've learned, it's reinforced because I am kind of a positive person and I'm constantly trying to make the girls feel good about themselves and trying to fill their tanks, like you guys called it. So that kind of confirmed to me that I'm not just there having a good time, that having a happy atmosphere is really helpful to the kids. The one thing that I took away from Elm Tree was rewarding effort that's unsuccessful and keeping the kids accountable for the effort, not the outcome. I always make sure that I cheer them on when they, give good effort, but I don't actually pay attention to how many times they pick up a ground ball or how many times they try to switch hands. I don't really pay attention to that as terms of a skill to write down. So I'm going to do better at that.
That's great. In a very similar manner, I didn't know about the Elm Tree when I was coaching football at the University of Mount Union as a defensive coordinator. But one thing that I always talk to our players about is 11 as 1. 11 people trying to perform one task to glorify or to make the team stronger. So one evaluation point that I would do by watching film is that whenever the ball carrier gets tackled, how many people are within 5 yards, a 5-yard circle, which really promoted, people getting after the ball in pursuit. And we would give an award for the person that was in that 5-yard area the most. So that really emphasized hustling, effort. People learned that you can be successful without making the tackle. And that really, fueled our team into being a very intense and pursuing football team. So thank you for that. I really appreciate that, rewarding, people that are not successful or that don't get the tackle, but are in the pursuit. And it's a lot of times it's those people that are in the pursuit that whenever somebody breaks a tackle and gets away with the ball, this person catches them and maybe strips them and causes a fumble. But I've seen that happen on many occasions. I think it's very, very important that we do that. So before getting started on principle 3, Kelly, how about can you name the first 2 principles and tell me a little bit about each one of them?
Filling the emotional tank had to do with keeping the kids in a good state of mind, that they will play harder. It's going to keep them in a better state where they're able to accept feedback, and it's just going to keep them emotionally at the right level so they can have a lot of fun with what they're doing. And then the Elm Tree of Mastery had to do with something about scoreboard versus mastery. Mastery climate's really focusing on the things the athletes can control.
Well, so the Elm Tree of Mastery, the E stands for effort, L for learning, and M for mistakes are okay because we can grow stronger through our mistakes. And I've always remembered that, sometimes failure is easier to handle than success, because a lot of people get comfortable when they're successful and they don't improve. So the third principle is in the principle that I intend to speak on here is honoring the game, which I chose this as my favorite to talk about because it's this principle that really defines your culture. It is, it assists you in teaching life lessons. And in preparing this presentation, it made me aware that this is the principle that probably made me the most uncomfortable as a head coach and as an assistant coach, as a father, as a powder puff coach, as a hot stove coach, because it makes you stand up for what you are and what you believe in. It forces you into developing a mission statement that defines your culture. So every coach, and I've talked about this before in other clinics, should have a mission statement. They should, and what I did, Kel, is I brought this little mission statement out that I had when I was a head football coach at Emory and Henry. And I know that you can't see it, but if I were teaching the class, I would have it up there, and so that you could see, they could read every word of it. So I'll read the first character. Can you see any of the words?
Not really. I can see the title. That's about it.
This is my mission statement. The mission statement for a football program is to stress core values and to develop life skills. It is essential that we emphasize and teach, as well as model, the following: respect, accountability, responsibility, unity, strong work ethic, trust, faith, spirituality, integrity, hope, love, perseverance, passion, and intellectualism above all things. Character traits and values such as these will enable the development of a strong group of young men that thrive for excellence on and off the field. Then it goes on. But basically, it describes the type of people that I would recruit and the type of people that I would coach. Now, that would be boiled down to a much simpler level in talking with young coaches and young athletes. So one of the major reasons that I wanted to share mine is because I think it helps define who I was and who I am. And the society that we live in views success in a different way than what the actual coaches do, at least the way that I did. I knew that whenever I took a job 10 years ago down in Virginia, that I had to change the culture of that football team. I had to change it because the academics were poor. I had poor behavior, a lot of drugs in the program. So I had to set the expectation. That's no different than setting the expectations of the culture of a youth football program, baseball program, volleyball program. You have to define your culture and you have to, model it. So the first thing that I think about when we got to honor the game is that culture. And then I think about the word sportsmanship. Okay. Cal, what does sportsmanship mean to you?
Sportsmanship means behaving like you should behave at a game. Okay.
And when I sat down and thought about the word, that's very good, by the way. Thank you for that. When I sit back and I think about sportsmanship, I think about ethics. I think about acting appropriately, fair behavior, polite, respect for our opponent, graciousness in winning and losing, not making excuses. And, some of the things that I think that I guess it would be all summed up by saying actions speak much louder than words. You can talk a good game and a good game. You can talk about sportsmanship. Then, coaches will do that, and then they'll go out and start badgering officials. Fans will badger officials. Parents will badger officials. As soon as the coach starts doing it, everybody else is going to do it because he's the leader of the culture. So other ways that, poor sportsmanship is shown is through body language. It's showing frustration by throwing things. And you can say a lot about your commitment to sportsmanship by your actions without saying a word. Coaches often fail to live up to their responsibility as role models, as leaders. They get a little taste of winning, and then all of a sudden it changes them. They forget about what got them there, And a lot of times that win defines their actions, and it changes the whole culture, or it makes it a very hypocritical culture. So it's really important that we understand that here at the PCA, Positive Coaches Alliance, our goal is to create a team culture that models and teaches players, coaches, fans, parents to honor the game. And that really, you know, there's a toolkit that we'll use once we understand the there's a little word that we use. It's an acronym that defines what honoring the game is, and the word is roots, and the R stands for rules. And when you're talking about rules, you're talking about fairness. You're talking about guidelines to govern safety and behavior. O stands for opponents. And we're taught in our society that our opponents are bad, but in the Positive Coaches Alliance, opponents are stimuluses for growth. The term that I really like is fierce and friendly, and they're not our enemy. The O stands for officials. And basically, when I think of officials, you only have to really remember one word: respect. Because they're the policemen on the field. And what they do is they're there for your safety and to make sure that the game is played on a level field. T stands for teammates. And you're part of a chain. And a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. So you never want to act out of control to embarrass your teammates, but you want to contribute to their success by filling their emotional tank, making them better because you're better. And S stands for self. And what you want to do when you're talking about yourself is understand that it's not just about you, but it's about your team. And you want to carry yourself in a very positive manner and add to the enjoyment and the learning process, and you want to add to the experience that your teammates have. Let's talk about a scenario here. Every one of us has experienced bad calls. I remember, constantly seeing bad calls made in wrestling or in football. How do you handle that? Kelly, how do you handle it?
Well, I just came from a game this weekend where the refs were really listening to the other coach, and it was very frustrating for me because as a parent, I was watching the game get out of control, and the coaches were screaming. Every call the officials made, the opposing coach was screaming at the officials, and it really and they changed their calls based on what this coach was saying. So the coaches that were coaching my daughter really kept composed. I was very impressed, and I would have done the same thing. They stayed under control, but they kept turning around to my daughter's team and saying, girls, this is our game. We've got to play our game, regardless of what the officials are saying or doing. I'll mention something to them at halftime, but for right now, we just have to play through it and be strong. And I was really impressed because they were pretty young coaches that they had this type of self-control.
Thank you so much. That is, exactly the way that I would see it. I think that, when you were talking about that, I was thinking about, the greasy wheel gets the oil, right?
Mm-hmm.
But, when you think back on it, one of our goals is to teach life lessons through sports. So what did that other team, when they were watching their coach yell and they saw the officials change the call, what did they learn from that?
That you should scream and disrespect officials.
That's exactly right. But they also learned that if they do it, they could profit from it. But are you really profiting from it? And it's a great teachable moment for, the home coach, the coach that is the coach of your daughter's team, to really talk about and learn about. Because, a game is a small pigment of what really happens in life. So that's exactly the situation I was going to talk about, where the coach is the other opposing coach is badgering the official, or on a wrestling mat, the the opposing coach is yelling at the official about some type of a technique that's being used, and the official changes the call. How do you handle it? So there's a toolkit for that, and it gives you an opportunity to really model honoring the game. And first of all, you can show a self-control routine, and you talked about that whenever the turn around and the hey, this is our game.
After 20 minutes, but I'm going to let you continue because I want to hear you go through some of the tools. So go ahead.
Okay. Secondly, would be a self-control routine, and the self-control routine involves self-talk, taking a deep breath. Third one would be narrated modeling, where first of all, your kids got to get to know you. They know the game, they know the rules, but they also know the culture in which you're coaching. So what you're going to do is you're going to step back, and you're not going to question calls, because that's who you are and that's what you want them to do. So narrated modeling lets your kids and your parents know that you know the game very well, but you're not going to be a poor sport. The other one is to seize teachable moments. Okay. When I think about a teachable moment, I think about what we talked about earlier today about Steph Curry, and about him losing his control, immediately responding to it, and then seeing the fans and how they reacted. Teaching that to your kids would help them to understand, the different entities that go within a contest. Other ways would be to drill honoring the game by putting kids into positions in practice where they have to make decisions. One example of this was, I used to have a hot-headed kid on my football team, and he would respond negatively if not watched, to somebody who pushed him in the back or anything. So I would get somebody to push him in the back and watch how he responded to it on an annual basis, because I knew that was his weakness, and I tried to help him develop his strength. So the other thing you have to realize as a coach is that they're your parents. And parents, are one of the major problems in today's sport. I was at a volleyball game the other day, and there's it's made up of seventh graders, and this guy's standing up in the middle of the volleyball game yelling at the officials, and his poor little girl was so upset she was crying. And they really, the best way to handle this is to have a parent meeting at the beginning of the year, and to set the expectations, set the culture right then. Make them sign a PCA pledge, which talks about parent behavior. Help them to understand the reason to be a double goal parent. Appointing a culture keeper. A culture keeper is somebody that's on the sideline, or somebody that is in the stands, that helps you maintain control and poise, so that the situation can remain positive. Another way is to cue the parents in on, hey, this is going to be a really tough game. There's going to be a lot of close shots, a lot of close calls. I just want to remind you to keep your poise. It's really important. Nip the problem in the bud, which means the first time that you see something happen, just let people know that, hey, this isn't going to be accepted here. Okay? I have this saying, never pet a growling dog. So don't put yourself in a position where you're approaching a parent that has lost their control. Wait till he cools down, empathize with them, and let the parents and fans know what's acceptable and what's not. And it's kind of like coaching your fans, just to have to honor the game as well as your kids. Does anybody have any questions?
Nope, I'm going to stop you there.
I'm sorry that I went a little bit long.
No, that's okay. That's okay. No, I thought you did great. I hear an echo. I don't know why I hear an echo. Sorry about that. Don, you just have so much natural experience. And I'm not just talking about your years of experience, just the way you talk. I mean, it just oozes out of you. I just want to listen to what you have to say, because I know you've been there and you've seen it. And that's really we call that the magic in the room. You are the magic in the room, because you have such a way of, I don't know if it's like humility mixed with confidence, mixed with experience. And it's a really dangerous combination for a workshop because you've got all the right pieces. Just the different things that you talked about and the way you explained them. I know as a coach that you've lived through it. So it just has credibility all over it, which I think is really a testament to who you are as a coach, but it is going to be able to impact coaches that you're in front of. I think it's fantastic. I have a couple different comments I put down, if that's all right, if you'd like to hear some. Number one, what is hot stove baseball?
Oh, it's youth baseball at the beginning level. It starts at age 9 and moves up through age 13.
Okay, because I think is that an Ohio thing or is that anywhere?
Yes.
Okay.
It's a northeast Ohio thing.
Okay, because I know they're one of our partners, and when you said I coached hot stove baseball, I'm like, what is that? Because I heard you say powder puff and then hot stove. I'm like, I wonder if it's like men playing.
Girls.
I know powder puff.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, my kids. I played powder puff in high school. So.
Well, I really enjoyed it.
It's great.
Enjoyed it. I did because those girls really appreciated learning how to do things the right way.
Yeah.
And with safety, and they were very, very easy to encourage, and there was many really good athletes.
Yeah. My husband always said that. My husband coached boys swimming all through the years, and then when he started a job about 10 or 15 years ago, he coached girls too, and it was the first time he'd ever coached girls. And he said, "Man, girls are great to coach." He said, "I had no idea. They listen, they pay attention, they do what you say, they don't have the attitude issue." And he said, "Man, I like coaching girls." So, well, that's good to hear. I just was curious about that because I heard you mention that. I was like, "What is hot stove?" I think your intro was great. I think your intro is exactly what the coaches need to hear. Now, saying that, you also are going to have a little biography printed up that when you go to deliver a workshop, we ask the partners to introduce us just because it's a little easier for them to read a little bit about you rather than you telling everything. So know that a lot of the stuff that you said in your intro will be in your biography and will be read for you. But usually what we don't put in the intro is what you said about what you've learned and how if I could have go back and do it again. So that's the type of thing that I like to hear in the intro, which you had, which I thought was great. Some of the things right off the bat, my biggest comment to you was ask, don't tell. Because you had a lot of things. You almost asked us a question and then you answered it yourself, where I think it could have been a great opportunity. For example, you said sports has really changed and we're talking about a lot more than equipment. What a great opportunity to throw that out to the audience and say, turn to somebody next to you. I want you to just name 3 ways that sports has changed since you were a kid. And that can really spark a great discussion. It also lets the audience know that you value their input. So that's why we say these are much different. This is a workshop, not a lecture or a clinic or a class. We intentionally use the word workshop because we want the coaches in the room to feel that they have value as well. Now, they're all going to sit there and think, compared to Don Montgomery, I don't have the experience or the value that he does. However, if you help your coaches to realize that what they're saying matters, and you did it to me as I was answering questions, you said, "That's great. Thank you for answering." I mean, that's awesome. That made me feel good as an audience member. But I think just every time, not every time, but more times than not, if you can pose a question like that to the audience and then cap it off with your experience. "Oh, I agree. Oh, I agree with that too. That's right." What I've also noticed that nobody mentioned was this. So just anytime you can spark discussion with partners or groups, usually a lot of trainers like to just put a question out there and just call on people one at a time, which is a good way to have audience engagement. But if you call on one person, you still only have 2 people talking. Whereas if you tell them to get with 2 or 3 people and discuss this for a minute, then all the ideas get flowing. So I would just encourage you right off the bat to do more of that. Look for opportunities for discussion among the audience. And then, as I said, then follow it up with your own expertise, or maybe sometimes it's not needed. Sometimes I hear such great answers from the audience. I'm like, well, my story's not as great of an illustration as that coach just gave me. So I'm just going to hold off there. I thought the Steph Curry example was fantastic. Anytime you can bring in anything local and current, I think that just is fantastic. So I thought that was great. And you also, I think you could have gone one step further in talking about, somebody at the level of Steph Curry. It was kind of surprising to see him take his mouth guard out and throw it. That could be a little quick discussion on the pressure, because Steph Curry is a very well respected athlete in terms of positivity. He's not flipping out or losing his top, but even him, realized that he did something wrong. And what did he do right away? he went over and apologized to the fan.
Right.
So I think that was a great example. I thought that was awesome, and I actually may steal that and use that. So thank you for sharing that. I think a lot of the things that you did today here, you would have done in the beginning of the workshop had you been doing this entire workshop. So like you spent 10 minutes on the introduction before you got into honoring the game. But I think a lot of that, because this is the situation and you have 20 minutes with me right now, you would have done that probably in the beginning of the workshop rather than waiting till, the end. So at first I put down, introduction's a little bit too long, but then I realized some of the questions you were asking, like, introduce yourselves, how many years have you been coaching, that you would have done at the beginning of the workshop. So I understand that. The other thing, I really like the way you were talking about honoring the game and linking it with culture. I've actually pushed, when we were revising this workshop, to put the slide on culture at the beginning of honoring the game, because I just think that's what it is. That's what honoring the game is all about. So when I deliver these workshops, I hit culture heavy right off the bat, because exactly what you said. I mean, honoring the game is defending the culture. So I like the way you put those in together. And I like the way you brought in your mission statement. One of the things that I encourage all coaches to do is, and maybe not even at the moment, but talk about, why do you coach? Just a simple question. Sometimes when you say mission statement, it's like, I don't know what that means. But if you just ask a simple question, why do you coach? It's a good discussion starter. And then say, do you have a philosophy of coaching? I always say that, when I first started applying for teaching jobs, every interview, the first question was, what is your philosophy of education? What's your philosophy of teaching? Yet when I volunteered to coach high school basketball, they were like, great, you played basketball, you know basketball, you own a whistle, you're the coach. And that was the only qualifications. They never asked me what my philosophy of coaching was. Mm-hmm. So I would encourage all coaches to, not here, not now, and you can hold up your philosophy, your mission statement that you had. My only concern in your mission statement, and it's not a big concern at all, is that it's not right in line with positive coach. Like you didn't connect it to Positive Coaching Alliance lingo necessarily. You had a lot of great stuff in there. And so that might be neat to mention, like prior to me getting involved with the Positive Coaching Alliance, this was my mission statement. If I had it to rewrite, maybe I would change a few things, but let me just read it real quick to you. So I think there was definite value in sharing that. I thought that was really good. And I don't know that you would need to have it up for everybody to see. I thought it was strong enough for you to just read just part of it, a paragraph of it. I thought that was fine. And then you talked about, setting expectations. That's the whole point of setting expectations. Then when you got into honoring the game, you had a 2 or 3 minute discussion on sportsmanship, which is correct. However, what do we call sportsmanship?
A culture.
No. What term do we use instead of sportsmanship? What's the principle called?
Honoring the game.
Yes. So we've actually intentionally used the term honoring the game instead of sportsmanship.
Right.
Because number one, sportsmanship is overused. A lot of people think sportsmanship is just what you don't do. Mm-hmm. Don't yell at the officials. Don't, right. Badmouth a teammate. So the idea of honoring the game, sportsmanship is a noun. It's static. It's flat. It's what you need to do. It's basically telling you this is how you have to behave. Honoring the game is an action. Honoring the game is exactly what you said, setting the expectations of respect for the rules, setting the expectations for respect for opponents, setting the expectations for how we want you to respect officials. So I think it was great the way you talked about sportsmanship, and you said using honoring the game to have good sportsmanship, but actually in effect, we've taken the word sportsmanship and replaced it with honoring the game. Mm-hmm. So it's just a minor thing, but I think it can really help you stay a little closer to the PCA principle rather than using Don Montgomery experience. You're using your experience intertwined with the PCA principle, and it can just be a little bit clearer, because then you've got people taking notes going, well, what's sportsmanship? Well, what's honoring the game? Well, I don't understand. Are they connected? We want to keep it clean and keep it very simple for them to understand. Okay. So when you're explaining sportsmanship or honoring the game then, and you went through, we used the acronym ROOTS, which was fine. And you said we created team culture that teaches honoring the game. Perfect. I like the way you said that too. I thought that was great. When you go through each of those ROOTS, what they are, you said it actually when we got to officials. You said when you're talking about honoring the officials, one word comes to mind, and that's respect. Well, that one word, respect, comes to mind for every single one of them. So the acronym ROOTS is actually respect for the rules, respect for the officials, respect for the coaches. So the word respect is the overall blanket on all of those.
Right.
So, when you go through those routes, I thought you did a nice job. You kept going through it pretty quickly, but I would love to see you, again, bring some of the audience in. You did it with the scenario when you were talking about, who's ever had trouble with officials? Give me an example. That was great. That was fantastic. But you can also throw out to the audience, how does your team do with respecting opponents? Is that challenging for your team? Have you ever been challenged with respecting opponents? Just throw some ideas out there, because then the coaches' wheels start turning and they start thinking, gosh, yeah, this little team I have right now, they're not doing well. They think their opponents are jerks. They go out there and think they're the enemy. And then, so that's what they're thinking. And then you, as Don, the trainer, can say, wow, are you intentionally teaching respect for opponents? What are you doing? For example, my daughter's swim team, the coach is so adamant about every single swimmer has to stay inside the pool at the end of their race until every swimmer touches the wall. And when every swimmer touches the wall, you lean across the lane line and you shake hands. To the point where I see some of these little 5-year-olds, especially these little 5-year-old boys that come into the end of the race and they're screaming at the guy next to them, I have to shake your hand, don't get out of the pool. And I mean, it's really, we just laugh, but she will scream across the pool at a swimmer that gets out at the end of their race if they don't wait for every other swimmer. And what I notice is this league, not everybody does that. Our pool is one of the only ones that does it, where everyone stays in the water till the last person comes in, and then you shake their hand and you say, thank you, nice race, nice race. She also has our players, I always call them players, our swimmers, when they get out of the pool, they have to thank the timers. And if they don't physically thank the timer when they get out of the pool, she will scratch you from your next race.
Wow.
Yeah. And these are like 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7, I mean, all the way up to high school. But it's just, and the league notices, it's called Laurelwood is the pool, but it's like, it's little things that you think this coach doesn't have time to deal with this stuff, but it makes a big difference. And even in the high school meets now, you can tell the kids that came from this pool and you can tell the kids that came from other pools. My daughter gets out of she's in high school now. She gets out and she thanks all the timers. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And she waits and shakes hands with the person next to them. And they all don't do that. So, just little things like that to bring in. I would have loved to, as a coach sitting in your audience, I'd love to share that example at the workshop because I think it's valuable. So what I'm saying is I think you need to give the audience an opportunity to share some of the best practices that they do, because then it's not all your experience, it's their experience too. Because you might not have ever been in a pool and had swimming, but to you, like, that's a pretty good example. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So, but other than that, I thought you did a great job with the scenario. You had us pair up and talk about it and what we would, anytime you can get us to get in a group or get in a pair or even stand up, just get out of our seats. Honoring the game's the last principle. So it's been a long workshop. Mm-hmm. And, usually I say you can talk at an audience for about 10 minutes. After that, you're going to start to lose them. And that's just basic psychology of listening skills. Right. As soon as you get them to move, stand up, sit down, thumbs up, thumbs down, talk to somebody here, then you're going to get their attention for another 10 minutes, 10 to 20 minutes. And unfortunately, as you said, things are changing and the attention span of adults is even getting shorter and shorter as the years go on. So to be able to mix it up at least every 10 to 15 minutes, it's going to be really helpful so that they can receive what you're saying. They can be a good, attentive audience. But no, I think, again, you give great examples. Your example of teaching, honoring the game to your player, and you were saying, like, being pushed in the back was hard. So we actually set that up and I did it. I mean, that's gold right there. That's a great example that you set up an area where he was weak and you practiced it. Mm-hmm. And I think that was great. And I'm going to remember never pet a growling dog because I think that's a great statement. That's something I'll remember next time I try to talk to a parent. I'm going to be like, man, never talk to a growling dog. So again, as you go through the tools, then after explaining the routes, as you go through the slides that have the tools, remember, you don't have to go through every single tool that's in the book. Because if you took the time to go through every single tool for each principle, it'll take forever. But the nice thing is you're sending the book home with them. So you can have the book, and I don't have the book in my hand right now, but you can have the book in your hand and say, okay, just let me show you where this is. If you turn to page 46, you're going to see the chapter that will talk about some tools in honoring the game. Let me just give you an example of one that I like. Maybe bring up self-control routine. What do you coaches do as a self-control routine when you feel the blood pressure rise and you're ready to lose your top? Find out from them what they do. And then the parent tools, like I think your part on parents was really strong. Again, because you've coached for so many years, you've probably seen it all. It's great to hear from your experience. But I think, you really hit home the idea. You need to have a parent meeting. And if you look on page 49, there's a couple different examples on what you can do to get parents on your side. So just to have them open the book to know, I'm not getting into this right now, but I'm sending you home with it. Great resources for you. It saves time and it gives them a chance to look deeper into something that you don't have a chance to go over in the workshop.
Right.
Because I always say too, like, you want to leave your audience wanting more. If you tell your audience every single thing they need to know about coaching, they're not going to be seeking more information. Right. And we want our partners to leave trying to get better every single day. So we're only giving them the tip of the iceberg. We're sparking some ideas. They're not going to learn everything they need to know in one workshop, but they can learn a few things, apply a few things to what they're having struggles with, think of players that they can, use filling e-tanks with more, and walk out of there knowing, if I can be more positive, if I can get two or three of these tools to use, I can be a better coach today, walking out on the field. That's really our goal and what we want to do.
That's great. 2 points. As soon as I knew that I was getting close, I started rushing. So
we all do that. That's
I agree with my introduction was too long. Secondly, is that the one thing I wanted to say about culture is culture is the very thing that differentiates your program from everybody else. Because it's like your personality, it's whenever you have a program that everybody desires to be in, it's kind of a mystique. And, why are those athletes so good at what they do and they have such great character? Well, it's because that's what's expected of them. You get what you expect in coaching. Yeah. And then secondly is when I asked the question to the coaches about what are some of the things that you've learned, I never shared my experience because I jumped over it. And that, one of the things that I've learned from being part of this organization or studying to be part of it was how important as a head football coach that I carry myself in a positive manner and not let things get me down. And I wear my heart on my sleeve. And I have a very intense look about me whenever I'm concentrating. And people always thought I was in a bad mood, and I wasn't. I was just concentrating. And I should have noticed, because a lot of the players asked me, "Coach, do you ever smile?" And
actually, that was one of the comments I wrote down as well. Smile more.
Yeah. And the key thing that I learned from that was that if I would have smiled more and I would have enjoyed the game and not been so pressured, that I probably would have been a much better coach. And so I have those kind of stories to share with people. I'm very, very motivated to do that and passionate about it. So thank you for all your insight. Yeah. And this old dog can still learn.
Absolutely. We love to teach lots of old dogs. As long as they're not growling at me, I'm okay.
Just don't pet them.
Just don't pet them when they're growling. No, and and I really have such respect for the people that want to become trainers, like people like you. I mean, you have so much more coaching experience than I do. So sometimes when I sit there and think, I have to evaluate you, like, how do I do that? But what I do know after doing 150 of these workshops is what audiences receive. And unfortunately, not every audience would love to sit there and listen to hear hours and hours of your coaching stories. I mean, some of us would, but some of them wouldn't. And so, in order to be most effective, we've got to just get them involved.
Get them to interact. So tell me, how many people are usually in a workshop?
That all depends. We do, if we just say a typical youth sports workshop, let's say it's for, hot stove baseball or whatever it is. Typically, you would get between 30 and 50 coaches to come out. It's usually on a Saturday, like a weekend, or an evening. Maybe it's like a 7 o'clock on a Wednesday night workshop. I would say typically between 30 and 50. Now that's a strong program. Like that's a team that has a strong program in place. They've publicized the workshop. They've talked a lot about why it's valuable. We've had other ones where we've expected 30 to 50 coaches and 10 show up just because it hasn't been publicized, or the YSO, the youth sports organization president hasn't really pumped it up enough to get people there. But there's other organizations all over the country that make it mandatory for their coaches to go through Positive Coaching Alliance training. And I've done workshops that have 80 coaches, 80 little league soccer coaches come out on a Sunday afternoon. So it really depends. And when you get assigned to a workshop, you will know approximately how many people are going to be there. We always encourage the trainers, you have to do a phone call to the partner 3 days ahead of time, just to make sure you have all the logistics ready. And that's where I ask a lot of the questions. What are your challenges? What are your coaches interested in hearing about? So, and I always say, about how many coaches do you think will be coming? Because it does change things too. If you're going to have 10 coaches versus 60 coaches, it might change a little bit of your delivery, and you want to know that ahead of time.
Right. Right.
So the next step for you, Don, will be to co-present at a workshop with a certified trainer. And we would say, like the first time out, maybe you would just do this principle, honoring the game, just to get your feet wet and see, you know, how the other trainer runs things. And then and then we'll get feedback from that person and say, you know, I think Don's doing great. He can handle way more than this. It's funny, sometimes I get feedback from the trainer that says, yeah, Don's great. You know, he'll be able to do a whole workshop. And then I go back to you and you're like, no, I only want to do 2 principles next time. I find that the candidates themselves are less confident sometimes than the other trainer. So Sonia DeWitt is our trainer manager. I will follow up with an email so that I'll link you two together, and she will let you know when there's double goal coach workshops available, and you would tell her when you're free, and then I would match you up with the certified trainer, and you would talk to them about which principle that you'd like to do. But we start out everybody just doing one principle first, and then we move you on from there depending on how well it goes.
Okay, so there's a couple more steps to become certified, right? And that is one of them.
Well, basically that's the next step. This was the big part. After this, it's really up to you. We will put you in a workshop. We'll plug you into a workshop, and you will do one principle. We've had some people from that we've decided they're certified. They're good to go. And then you can apply for workshops on your own and do them by yourself. And we've had other people that's taken them 4 or 5 outings to co-present at a workshop before we feel like they're ready to go. It just depends on how much experience you have with, you know, crowds and audiences and speaking and things like that. So it really depends. In a perfect world, I'd love to send you out, have you co-present at one workshop and have them come back and say, yep, Don's ready to go. Let's assign him to the next workshop by himself. That's the perfect world scenario. But that's rare that happens right off the bat. But sometimes it does.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I feel pretty comfortable in front of people. So
good.
So, and I thank you for your input. I 100% agree with interaction. I just didn't want it to take up my whole, because it would have taken up the whole 20 minutes if I kept asking questions, right?
But that's the thing. That's the thing we have to balance, because interaction does take up time. So you have to steal time from other places. So it is a struggle, because to get interaction from the audience, you have to say less.
Right.
And there's a balance there. And sometimes I think, gosh, I have this great story I just want to tell, but I don't have time because I want to keep moving. So the other thing I always try to remember too is the audience doesn't know what you know, and they don't know what they're missing. So, you know, it's not like you have to hit every single bullet on the slide. I've had it before where I've had someone tell a great story about a e-tank, and then I'm like, all right, I don't need to repeat that slide because that coach just gave a great illustration of this. So sometimes there's clicks on the PowerPoint that you click through faster than others. Sometimes you skip them. You know, we've never said you have to get through every single PowerPoint, every single slide. But the slides are there to support you and keep your pace flowing and keep you on track.
Okay. Sounds good.
Yep. All right. Well, if you have any questions for me, let me know. I'll get that email out to Sonia so she can connect with you, and we'll try to get you out to a workshop as soon as we can.
Okay. I'm be gone through the middle of July, so probably end of July, early August.
Okay.
Would that be okay?
Fine. That's fine. That's our busiest I'm is end of July, early August. And the good news is that it's usually football workshops, which are perfect for you. So
yeah, I'm going to really enjoy this.
Yeah, you know? I think you will too.
It's, you know, I haven't felt like this in a long time, because, you know, after getting out of coaching and going into fundraising, I didn't really realize how much I was going to miss this part of it. So.
And you make a big impact. I stopped coaching for a while when I became a PCA trainer in 2009, because I thought, you know, gosh, I want to just talk to all coaches. And it's really cool to see that you're impacting 20 coaches in a room who are each impacting 30 kids. So, you know, you doing one workshop can impact 600 kids in one night. You know, it's really awesome. And especially when you see light bulbs go off and coaches come up to you afterwards and say, wow, This was great. I learned so much. I'm going to change the way I do things. Thank you so much. And you're just like, oh, you know, that's why you do it, because you can just have you can have a broader impact than you can sometimes on your one little team.
Well, thank you so much. And
yes,
if you need anything from me, you can call me too, okay?
I will. Well, Sonia is going to need a few things from you. So I'm actually going to send you the email right now. It says your next steps. And there's just some, you know, things that she needs from you in terms of logistical information, W-9 stuff, that kind of thing.
Okay.
So she'll reach out to you.
Okay. God bless. Thank you.
Thanks, Don. You too. Take care.
Bye.